working?
Okay. Okay, so thank you for coming today, and we're excited to have Karen Magee, who is going to be doing 4 consecutive sessions on QuickBooks. Now, I've got a couple of housekeeping items. If everybody will look at their cell phone and make sure you've turned it off, that would be helpful. And we have, because this class is so in-depth and there's so much information, as you remember, we had asked people to sign up, and we were giving them a little special treat. So the special treat is the Pepins, Celeste, Catherine, Charlene, and Ken are the only people that can ask questions during the class. But write your questions down, and Karen is very happy to answer your questions after the class presentation, okay? We realized the last time we had QuickBooks that everybody has a different version on their, their computer or whatever, and so we got bogged down into the question and answer of different versions of QuickBooks. So this time we're going to try it this way. Who knows? We may change our mind the next time. But so without further ado, thank you for coming, and I want to introduce Karen Magee, who is the sole proprietor of Magee Bookkeeping.
Hi everybody, it's nice to be here today. It's good to see everybody. It's a corporation, but I own Magee Bookkeeping, and I have been working for myself now for about 6 years. I have been doing books and accounting for more than 20 years, almost solely on QuickBooks. I've been a pro-advisor for the last 6 years, and I am certified in all versions of QuickBooks. That is the desktop version, the online version, point of sale, and enterprise. Right now, today, we're only going to be talking about the desktop version. I anticipate, and we're only really going to be talking about the introduction and how you do things, how you enter information. The next couple of classes we'll be touching on reports, we'll be touching on point of sale, we'll be touching on the online version, but today we're going to be doing just a basic introduction to QuickBooks, so if you haven't used it yet, you can get familiar with it. There's a lot of information that we're going to cover. I'm going to try and get it all in the hour and a half that we have and leave some time for questions, so we'll see how it goes. And I talk really fast, so that's, I just talk fast. So how many here already use QuickBooks? Oh, fantastic. And how many here do have employees that they run through QuickBooks? Okay, we are going to go through employees. It's not, not everybody does employees, but I will touch on that. So, before you even start doing anything, and I know a lot of us already use QuickBooks, so I won't spend too awful long on here, but you really need to keep good accounting habits. You need to record transactions on a regular basis and stick to it. If you go through and you try to do a couple of months at one time, you're really going to get bogged down and doesn't really like it so much. Accuracy and consistency are really important in here. And you want to find and fix your mistakes. The reason why the accuracy and consistency are important are because when you're running your reports, if you have contract labor and 1 month you recorded as contract labor and then the next month you recorded as professional fees, now your reports are all messed up. So you just want to make sure that you find and fix your mistakes. You want to make sure that you run your reports on a consistent basis and make sure that everything in there is done correctly. You want to reconcile your bank statements. I don't know if everybody does that or not, but it is important to reconcile your bank statements. The reason why is because QuickBooks keeps your bank balance, your running bank balance, and if you can't call up the bank and say, well, how much money do I have in my bank, and then say, okay, well, great, I have that much money to go and spend. QuickBooks keeps all that for you, so if you reconcile your bank statements, you always have a good bank balance. You want to manage your financial statements, update and review regularly. You want to run your income statements from your balance sheets and just make sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to look. Always ask for help if you need it. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's many different resources. A lot of us, probably myself included, have a tax professional. I have a CPA that I use for my business. I work with a lot of CPAs throughout the year. There's nothing wrong with calling. I'm sure, you know, they'll answer your questions throughout the year. And you can always call the QuickBooks Pro Advisor. You can sort for them online, and usually their first hour is free. They can answer your QuickBooks questions, and they can help you maintain your books throughout the year. Most of the QuickBooks Pro Advisors are either bookkeepers or accountants, and you know, they can answer whatever questions accounting-wise that you have throughout the year, and a lot of times they're going to be cheaper than your CPA. However, CPA usually rolls it up into one bill at the end of the year. So, okay. Cash versus accrual accounting. You're going to keep your books on either a cash or accrual basis. And the good thing about QuickBooks is you can run reports no matter what you report on your tax return. You can do reports throughout the year on either cash or accrual. I'm not going to go over the difference between the two because I'm sure most everybody knows here. But if, like I said, if you're cash, you can always run accrual reports throughout the year, so you can see what your company is doing. It's more realistic than a cash and accrual. So. Okay, to set up a new company, this is when you first get QuickBooks. And you can either purchase QuickBooks online, or you can walk into a store, purchase a box version. Either way, it doesn't really matter. There's many different versions you can get. You can get Pro, you can get Premier, you can get Accountant version. The difference is between the three versions, what features are available for each one. Unless you're a fairly large business, you can probably do with Pro. And then Enterprise is even bigger than that. But you get everything installed, you get all your numbers, and the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to get this screen here. And the easiest way to do it is Express Start. And you hit Express Start, and then you get to this screen. And we have our business name, and we have our industry. The business type, that's going to be if you're a sole proprietor, if you're an LLC, if you're a corporation, if you're nonprofit, if you're governmental, that's where you put in your different business types. Then you have obviously your EIN and your address, so you just put in all of your company information. Now, when you enter that information, on all of the reports and everything that you do, that's where it's going to pull from. So if you're going to be doing 1099s, if you're going to be doing invoicing, if you're going to be doing anything like that, this is where it's going to pull from. So whatever you put here is what you want to make sure that's how you want it to show up on all of the other information that you're going to be sending out. You can change it later on, but this is, you want to make sure that everything in here obviously is correct, and that's the way you want it to look on all of your forms. So you have everything registered, and this is your home screen. And this is just the default home screen that you get as soon as you start everything. And there's a lot of information on here. And it's pretty overwhelming when you first look at it. But there's a lot of different things that you can do on here. You have your vendor section up there at the top. And where it says vendors, where it says customers, and where it says employees, those are also links. So if you want to, if you have employees and you want to see your, a list of your employees, you can just click that link and it brings up your employee list. They don't tell you that, but that's pretty interesting to know. But this is your home screen. Most of your transactions are going to be generated off of your home screen here. And up in the top, usually up there where it says home and has the little house up there, I don't have a pointer, I'm sorry. If you ever click that button, it brings you back here to your home screen. So, if you toggle on, this one doesn't have payroll, but if you want payroll, if you want to subscribe, you just hit that button and it walks you through that process. if you want, but, here's where you enter invoices, you receive your payments. Most everything you can do is from your home screen, except for running reports. The next thing that you need to make sure is you need to make sure you get your chart of accounts correct. And again, if we go, I'll go back here. Your chart of accounts button is up there. I'm not tall enough, I'm sorry. It's up there at the top. And this is why they ask you what your industry is, because it will automatically generate a sample chart of accounts for you. Most of the chart of accounts that they will generate is going to be pretty good. You're going to use most of them. Obviously, everybody has a couple of accounts that you want to add on there, or there's some that you're not going to use. You don't have to use everything that they put on there, and you can always add one. So here is a sample chart of accounts. This is just a sample company that I pulled up. But, so you have, you might not give discounts. You might not have landscaping services. This is a landscaping company. So this is a sample chart of accounts here. You can edit these accounts. You can also change the type of account. So if you have an income account and you say, gosh, that's really not an income account, that's really an expense account, you can edit that account instead of making a new one and change it to an expense account if when you made it, you messed up and made it. Not that I ever did that or anything, but you can change that and make it an expense account so it's right on your reports. The way that you do a new account is you hit this account button down here, and then you just hit new. And then what pops up is this add new account form here. And you choose the account that you want. Mostly you're going to do an income or expense account. Sometimes you'll do some of the other accounts listed here. The other account types is, they are when you have your short-term loans, or if you have your short-term assets where you have some, I'm going to give away really fast. Usually these are going to be the ones that you're going to use for the most part. So you just pick, these are little buttons, and you just pick here and you hit continue. And then the next screen that you get, I just picked expense on this one, they all look the same. But it says account type and it says expense. And then you have account name there, you can call it whatever you want. You can add a description. The description doesn't show anywhere except for what you want. But let's say that you said, I want to do an expense, and you realize, oh no, I really wanted to do an income. Well, you can there's a drop down up there for expense. So you can just do a drop down and change it to whatever it is that you need to make it. So, and then once you do that, it'll show up in your chart of accounts, and you can use it on your transactions. The next thing that we're going to talk about is your customers. On your home screen, if you hit the Customers tab, it'll bring up all of your customers. And this is a little small, sorry about that. But this is your customer homepage. And it has a list of all of your customers here. The default sorting is alphabetical. It has all of your customers' open balance here. There's a couple of different ways that you can use the customer page. You can use it here and scroll up and down and go through your customers and find whoever you want. Up at the top, above the customer name and above the balance, you can click on that and it'll sort by that. So it defaults as an A to Z sort. If you click on that button up there, sorry, I'm holding up the region. It's right, but it's right above where it says the Adams Candy Shop and the $40. If you click on that, it will sort it from Z to A or A to Z. And then if you click on where it says the customer balance above the $40, it'll also sort there as well, and it'll sort from 0 up to your highest customer balance, and then it'll also do it the other way. If you click it again, it'll do it from the highest customer balance down to 0, which is helpful if you want to find out who owes you money and how much it is in the fast way. If you need to add a new customer, Up there at the top left, it says New Customer and Job. You click on that and then you hit Add New Customer. And this is where it brings you. This is where you add your new customer name. If they do have an opening balance, you can add the opening balance there. And it has all of the information here that you may need for this customer. The more information that you add, the better it helps you later. You can run different kinds of reports for these people. You can create labels to do a mailing. You can do emails to people. You can do mass emails through QuickBooks. You can email your invoices. You can email statements. You can just do a blanket sales email if you have email addresses to everybody. So this is where you put all of that information here. You have, then you have the different tabs over here. It has the different information that you can put on for your customers. They have the payment settings, sales tax, here's payment settings. If you want to assign account numbers to your customers, you can do that here. You can say your preferred delivery method. If they always want to pay with a credit card, you can put their credit card here on account. And that way they don't have to give you their credit card every single time that they call and place an order. If you have QuickBooks as your credit card processor. When you do an invoice to customers, you can add many things. You can keep track of inventory in QuickBooks. You can do services. This is what generates all of that is your invoices or your sales receipts. The difference between your invoice and a sales receipt is your invoice is going to keep an open balance on your customer. The sales receipt is going to be just if you walk up and you purchase something from someone and then you leave, that's going to be your sales receipt. And the sales receipt assumes that you took the payment right away, and it does not keep a balance on the account for your customers. So that's the difference between the invoices. Anything that you want it to say, there's a whole design layout tool, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty easy to use. It takes me forever to do it because I'm not like a graphic designer, not that you have to be. But it has a little grid mark, and I'm not good with ideas. I do numbers. So, but you can, your quantity, item number, description, and again, you can change these columns in the layout. You can change them to say whatever you want. You can take them out. You can put them in, and that's in the layout designer. So don't be overwhelmed when you first look at the invoice because they have a lot of information on there. After you create your invoice, you're going to receive the payment from the customer. And all you do is you put in the customer's name under received from, and then what they paid, when they paid it, and the reference number. If they don't pay everything in full, that's okay because it keeps a balance, a running balance on all of your customers, and you can run a statement or any of that. You can also, let's say they had 2 invoices here, and you applied their payment to the wrong invoice. You can always pull this payment screen back up and reapply it to the correct invoice. I know that from experience because I've done it many times before, and it works well. So you can always do that. This payment screen doesn't go away once you save it. You can always use it again. And it lists all of the open invoices there. And then once you receive the payment, you make the deposits. And this lists all of the payments that you make. And if you do have credit cards, if you have a credit card processor that is not QuickBooks, and they take their credit card processing fee out, this is where you record the processing fee, is on this deposit. This deposit right here is also, if you have the printable, the laser deposits that you can put on the printer and print off, this is what it's going to print off. So if you have 5 checks or whatever, and then you put your deposit slip on there and print it off, you know, this is where this is what you're gonna print. But all you do when you have credit cards, does everybody here take credit cards? Does anybody take credit cards? Okay, if you take credit cards and they do a processing fee, you take it out on this one, this screen here, you do bank fees or credit card fees, and you make it's a negative instead of a positive, and then your deposit total over here will equal what's actually deposited to the bank.
And I guess that goes for PayPal as well, because we take payments from PayPal.
PayPal you're gonna set up as a different bank account,
Oh, okay.
but yes. Go over here, and you have reports that you can run over here, and they actually made it really easy. Vendor, the same exact way, you go to vendor, add your vendor. The vendors, these are people that you pay. So sometimes it's good to have maybe a little bit more information than the customers, at least for me it is. But they work exactly the same way. You have your phone numbers, and 99's for you. You must make sure that you click that box, and you must make sure that you put in the tax information there for them to be printed off on your 1099s. The date of the bill. Now if you're cash or accrual, that's going to also change your date. So you just have to be careful when you're putting in your bills. If you are on an accrual basis, it doesn't always matter what date they have their invoice dated. Right now, a lot of the nonprofits are coming up on their year end at the end of this month, but they are getting bills for July services, so you don't want to put a June date up in that date up there if you are on an accrual basis and you're getting your July bills, because it's going to throw off your reports, because it's actually for July services. So you want to make sure that your date, if you're on an accrual basis, you need to really make sure what date you're putting in on your bills, because that's what's going to generate your reports. I don't know why they call it this, but your reference number is your invoice number. They've always called it reference number, but that's just the invoice number from the vendor. And then your amount due is going to be the total amount that's on the bill that's due. And then you have your bill due, that's the due date. And like now, it defaults. The default date on there is the day of the bill. So if you have terms from vendors, you're going to want to make sure that you change your bill date to whatever the bill date is actually due. You also can change terms here and make it a default for your vendor. So whenever you pay a bill or enter a bill from that vendor, it always defaults to that, net 30 days or net 60 days. The other thing QuickBooks can do for you is it has in there like a 2% net 10, where if you pay a bill, your actual bill is due in 30 days, but if you pay it within 10 days, you get 2%, a 2% discount. I'm not sure of many vendors that do that anymore, but some of them still do, and this can help you do that. Your memo, you just put in there whatever it is that bill is for. You don't have to use a memo. I use it all the time. I always put on there what it is that the invoice is for. That way, if someone purchased lanyards and they purchased from, ABC company, and then 3 years later someone comes to me and says, gosh, I purchased lanyards about 3 years ago and I don't remember who I purchased it from. You can do a search, and you can search the memo field for lanyards, and it'll bring up every single transaction that I have lanyards in that memo field. And then there's two things down here. If you notice, there's your expenses and then items. Expenses is just a straight expense. So this one happens to be interest expense. That's for your contract labor or utilities or anything that's a straight expense. That's where it would go. Let's say this is a bank. So let's say that half of this went to interest and half actually went to the loan. You can split it out here, and you can put $25 to interest expense and then $25 to your loan. So you're keeping your balances of your loans real time as well. You can do that. Also, if you don't know, because you don't have an amortization schedule, what the split is going to be between the interest and the loan. you can always pull this bill back up, and you can edit it later on, even after it's been paid. So, the other tab up here is items. I don't think I put a slide in on that. But if you're receiving items, like merchandise items, that's where you would list out the items. And it would just be a line for each item, and then it has a quantity, and then it has the cost of each item. So you just want to make sure that you're entering it correctly if it's an expense or if it's an item. So. When you need to pay bills, this is the screen that you get, and you can do it a couple of different ways. Let's say it is the 1st of the month and you just want to pay everything through the 15th. You can go up to the top where it says show bills, and you can say due on or before, and you can put in a date there. Or you can manually select. Let's say you only want to pay 1 or 2 bills right now. You can manually select what bills you want to pay. You can split pay some where you only want to pay half of a bill now and then you pay half of a bill later. You can do that over here on the amount to pay. That is an editable field. And if you have discounts, where I was talking about the 2% net 10, if you have that on your invoice, on your bill, when you entered your bill, if you hit this set discount when you go to pay it, that's where you actually take the discount when you pay it. And that is an editable field as well. It says how much do you want your discount to be and where do you want it to go. Right here is where you put the date of the payment. Usually it'll be the day that you're writing the checks. A lot of people that I do a lot of nonprofit and governmental, and so sometimes you have to get 2 signatures on a check. So I'll run checks. Sometimes I'll run checks on Wednesdays with a Friday date, so you can edit that date and make it whatever date you want. If you're paying by a credit card, you can also use this way to pay by a credit card. The method here, instead of check, you do a drop down, and then you put in whatever credit card it is that you use, and it'll automatically post that to your credit card bill. And then we have here to be printed or assigned check number. To be printed means that you have the paper checks and you're going to put it in your printer and QuickBooks is going to print your checks for you. Assigned check number is when you have handwritten checks and you write 4 or 5 handwritten checks at a time. All you do is you hit assign check number, and once you hit pay selected bills, it'll come up with a box where you can put what check number is associated with what bill. And so it'll automatically post that to your register then. And you can see down here, your ending balance, this is your check register, so if you pay $1,200 worth of invoices, that's going to be what your ending register is. So it's telling you how much is in your register and how much is, how much is going to be after you pay all your bills. The other way you can pay bills is that you can write an actual check. This is the screen for an actual check. What you need to be careful on here, if you have more than one checking account, up there where it says bank account, that says checking, and that's a drop down. So if you have more than one account, you can toggle between the different accounts that you have. And then you have your check number over there, and the date and the amount, and then pay to the order of, that's going to be driven from your vendor list. And this, if you notice, you still have expenses and items. So instead of entering a bill, you can always enter it off of your check. The problem, if you do this and you're on an accrual basis, is you're again not capturing, it's going to go off of your check date. So if you're not capturing the expense, the time of the, the incurrement of the expense of your accrual basis, and you run your checks, and you do it this way.
Okay. Just one question, because you're referring to accrual and cash. There's one of the tabs on the home page lets you set whether or not your
cash or accrual, right? Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Can you tell me where that is?
That is going to be when you're setting up the books. It says, are you cash or accrual? It doesn't, what that does is it defaults your reports when you're running reports. It doesn't matter if you select cash or accrual throughout the year, you can always change the reports. And you can always, if you're accrual and you're running an income statement, it'll default it to accrual, but you can go into the settings on the reports and you can always change it to cash. You can always toggle back and forth between the two.
So you set it up when you set your account up itself?
Yes.
Is there a way to go in there? Let's just say you started out on a cash basis and then your business has progressed and you need to be accrual basis.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any one of the settings, is there a way to change that?
You can always change that, yes. You go under your company information and you just select if you're cash or accrual. And again, what that does is it defaults your reports. So if you're cash and you select cash, all the reports that you run are going to be defaulted to cash. You can always go under there and change it to accrual. So you have, you can, it doesn't matter, you can always change it. And we have our employees. Our employee screen looks like our customer screen and our vendor screen. And just like the customer and vendor screen, you can sort by the name, you can sort by the balance. They probably will never have a balance. If they do have a balance, there's probably something wrong. If you select the employee name, you have all of their paychecks over here. What QuickBooks used to do, if you've been using it for a while and you use direct deposit, their paychecks used to say 0 because they didn't actually have a paycheck that you would print off, and it was 0 because they direct deposited. It was such a pain, and they finally changed it. So now they have their paychecks, and it should say over there with an actual balance on there. So it doesn't matter if it's direct deposit or not. It'll show you how much each paycheck was actually for. To enter a new employee, it looks exactly the same as your customers and vendors. Again, you want to be very detailed on this, especially because it's employees. So you have your name up there, social security number. You want to make sure you enter your social security number. You want to make sure you enter their address correctly. You want to make sure that you have their I-9. You want to make sure that that's all toggled. Everything that you put in here on these screens prints off on their W-2s. So you want to make sure it's accurate, and you want to make sure that you have the correct information in there that they gave you. And if they do update their W-4 throughout the year, you come back to the screen and you edit it. QuickBooks will do your payroll schedules for you. And what that means is if someone is biweekly, or if someone is semi-monthly, or if someone is monthly, you want to pick which schedule it is that you use because it does affect your tax tables. Your tax table, if you're biweekly, is different than if your tax table is monthly. So that's where you're going to pick your pay frequency. And that's just over here on the tabs over here. And your tax, oh wait, what is it? Here is also, under the payroll info, this is where you have their earnings. So you have their hourly earnings, or if their salary, you put in the total salary. You don't do what their salary is hourly, you put in their total salary for the year. And when you do your payroll, it'll break it down for you, so you don't have to do the addition every month, which is nice. So here's where you enter your taxes, and that is up over there on the top right where you hit. You see the button over there that says taxes. You hit that button and you get to this screen here. And this is where you enter their W-4 and VA-4 information. You have the federal tab up there with their filing status, allowances, if they have extra withholdings. Some people are actually exempt from certain taxes. So you can toggle that on or off. Not everybody pays federal unemployment, so you can toggle that on and off, and it's the same with the state. The state screen looks just like this, except it has, some people are blind exempt and not liable for state unemployment tax as well. The employment information tab, you also want to make sure that you keep this up to date. You have your hire date. If someone left and then they came back, you can do their second hire date because they have an original hire date up there. This is very helpful if someone maybe leaves employment and they file for unemployment, or if someone calls and they want to do employment verification. You have all of the information here, and you're not digging through files, you know, while you're on the phone with someone, that you have all the information right here for you. Not that I ever have done that either. Most of the tricks and everything I've learned on here has been because I've had to go through it myself, and I'm just like, God, this is really such a pain. Well, this will do it for you, so I learned it that way. To actually pay an employee, this is what your paycheck is going to look like when you're entering information. So you have your regular pay up there, or it might say salary if they're a salaried employee. They have overtime, or if you want to do your sick or vacation time, there's the line that you would do that. If you take deductions on their paycheck, they have their deduction screen here. This over here is going to be all the taxes that's taken out of their paycheck. And this over here is the employer taxes. All of those are editable. All of these fields are editable. I wouldn't advise to edit it unless you know what you're doing, because if you edit it here, you will probably get everything messed up. Not that I've ever done that either. So. And then you have your payroll summary. This is, I think, the only actual report maybe that I have in here. I was going to talk about reports at the next session. But on your payroll summary, this is everything that you just had on your paycheck, but only in a more readable format. So you have your salaries up there under your gross pay, and then these taxes withheld are what's actually withheld from the employee gross. And then your net deductions, and then down here are your employer taxes. Then we have reconciliations. There's a lot of reconciliations. I think a lot of people think, oh, you just reconcile your bank statement and you're done. Well, you don't. You reconcile your bank statement, you reconcile PayPal, you reconcile credit cards, you reconcile all of those every month. Well, I do. I do. So to do your reconciliation, this is the reconciliation first screen here. You select what account you're going to do. You have, and again, you have your checking. You can do savings. You can do your loans. You can do credit cards. You can do PayPal, which you set up as an actual bank account. So you just select your account. You select your bank statement date. Your beginning balance is already in there, and it should equal the ending balance from the month previous, and it's, you know, I mean, it's on your statement, you know, it's ending balance. Your ending balance is what you're going to enter as your ending balance, which is the ending balance on your statement. Not when you don't call the bank and you say, what's my balance? You're going to, it's statement driven. And then if you have your service charges, or if you have interest, you also enter that here as well. If you come here and you realize that your beginning balance is not the same as what it says on your statement, because you reconciled the statement wrong the month previous, not that I've ever done this either, you can also undo the last reconciliation here and redo it. So once you reconcile, if you do it wrong, you can undo it. This is your actual reconciliation screen. And there's a lot of information on the screen. And there are a couple of ways that you can make it a little bit easier. Up at the top, on the top right up there, it says hide transactions after the statement date. So if you are reconciling, you can see it's today the 10th. Today's June 10th, and say I'm reconciling May's bank statement. I don't need any June transactions because they're not going to be on that statement. So if I hit that hide transactions after the statement end date, everything after May 31st is going to be removed from the screen, and it might be a little bit less cluttered. Your deposits are over on the right. And all you do is you click on each line, and it'll clear it through, and it puts a little check mark on there. And you have, it'll tell you down here how many deposits and other credits that you have, and how many checks and payments that you have. The way I do it, which doesn't mean that that's the way you have to do it, because it's just the way I do it. I go through my deposits first, and I go line by line, and I click it off line by line. And this is why on that deposit screen, if you have a credit card processor that takes their fee off before they deposit the funds to your bank, you want to make sure that you take that fee off on that deposit, because if you don't do it, then what happens is your deposit on here doesn't match that deposit that's on the bank statement. So you want to make sure that your deposits on your deposit screen is what's actually being deposited to the bank, because now here we are at the reconciliation, and if it doesn't match, then you're going to be sitting here on the reconciliation for 45 minutes looking for one deposit on that too. So over here are your checks. So we have ones with check numbers and ones without check numbers. Well, what does that mean? Sometimes you have your EFTs, your automatic withdrawals, or use a debit card. So when you're writing checks, you either have a check number or you cannot put in a check number. Some people put in DB for debit card so that they know when you're doing this reconciliation that that was actually a debit card that they used. When I'm doing taxes or if I'm doing EFTs, for the check number I put in EFT. So I know it's an actual EFT. It's not ever going to be a check number, and I know it's going to be, an electronic funds transfer coming out of my bank account. You don't have to do that. You can just leave it blank, which I do that too. So, but you go through and now on this, again, you can sort on anything. If you click up on the date or if you click up on check number, you see there's a little arrow next to the check number. You can click on payee or you can click on amount. You can sort any of these columns by clicking at the top of that column if you're looking for something and you can't find it. And then over here, you're going to see your service charge and interest, and that comes from the screen before. You have your ending balance, your cleared balance, and your difference. So if you are off before you're reconciling, you're not going to want to reconcile if you're $25 off. You're going to want to go and find it. But a good way to help you find it is you have your deposits here and your checks here, so you can look on your bank statement and make sure that your deposit. This doesn't have any check. You can make sure that your deposits equal what it says on your bank statement, or you can make sure that your checks equal what it's on your bank statement. So it kind of helps you find if you're looking for something and there's a mistake somewhere. It kind of helps you find where to maybe look a little bit further. We have our common reports. The second session I was going to go into a little bit more in depth on the reports and what you can and can't do on the reporting. But I wanted to talk about reports because these are the ones that are the most common that everybody runs and looks at. So, our first report is called many different things. Profit and loss statement, income statement. On here, you have your income up there at the top, and then you have your expenses, and then you have your other income, and then so your net income. I think everybody knows what an income statement looks like. On the top left, you see where it says accrual basis, so you can tell how your report is ran, if it's accrual or cash. To change that, what you do, if you say it's accrual, you're like, no, I don't really want accrual, I just want to know what I did last week, period. You go up to Customize Report, and under Customize Report, that's where you can change everything. You can change and I'll talk about this more next time, but you can change between an accrual or cash. You can change what it says up top there. If you don't want it to say Larry's Landscaping and Garden Supply, you want it to say something else, you can change that. You can change profit and loss. You can change, if you don't want the time and the date, if you don't want any of that up there, you can take all of that off. You can change the fonts through there. You can change everything through the customized report button. Also up at the top, you see you can change the dates. Right now, this says this month to date. So that means it would be from, you know, June 1st through June 10th. You can change that. They have a bunch of preset ones, or you can just go ahead and put in where it says from and to your own time frame. Me personally, I usually just go and put in my own time frame because it's easier for me to put in the time frame that I'm looking for than going through that big scroll down thing trying to find, you know, this current fiscal year to date or this calendar year or whatever. I just go and put in the dates. It's just easier for me. The show columns, you have total. This particular one says total only. What you can do is there's a drop down there as well, and you can set it for week, you can set it for month, you can set it by quarter. So if you're doing a whole calendar year, you can see what you did every single month, you can see what you did every single quarter, you can see what you did by customer, you can see or you can just keep it here under total. And then the sort by default, you're probably never going to use that. So. The next one is our balance sheet. And all of the reports look the same, as in they have all of the same options. You have your customized report, you can comment on the report, so you can, if you have a comment on the balance sheet, you know, like where it says credit card, say you want to put a comment on there that says, you know, this credit card was paid on XYZ date. You go up there and you hit comment on the report, and that's how you put your comments on there. This is the same thing where if you go through customize, you can change between cash and accrual accounting, which will affect both, you know, the income statement and the balance sheet. The next report is the AP aging, and I did not do one for AR, I only did one for AP. The AR looks exactly the same, it just says AR, aging detail, and it has customers on there. But what this does is it lists all of your bills, it shows what you have currently due, it shows what's been, you know, what's overdue, and it gives you current 3160, 6190, and greater than 90. What's good about these reports is you can run them, if you give terms to clients, you can run these reports, see who's not paying you. There are other reports for AR that you can run that also has their contact information on there, so you can, you know, everything is on one page, so you can say, call them up and say, hey, invoice 1234 is overdue by XYZ days, you know, everything's on one page, so you don't have to look here and then go, okay, well now let me go look up this customer, okay, well now let me go look up their phone number. Everything's on one page. That is why it's important that you enter all of that information when you enter that client, or vendor, because all of the reports that you're going to run, it pulls all of the same information from those enter screens. So I've been using QuickBooks for a long time, and there's a lot of things that they don't tell you, but you can do. If you are in the date field, and you hit the plus key, it adds 1 day. So if I'm in the date field on any form, and if I hit the plus key, and it says 6/10, because today's the 10th, if I hit the plus key, it'll go to 6/11, 6/12, 6/13. Then if I hit the minus key, it goes 6/10, 6/9, 6/8. So a lot of times I just do plus and minus. let's say that you want to find something and you're not quite sure how to look for it. If you go here, you go up to the edit button and you come down to find, not search. Search is you're going to search the internet. You don't want to do that. Find is you're going to find something here within your QuickBooks program. So that's going to be the difference between search and find. So you're going to go to find, and this is going to be your find screen. So you know you have an invoice, let's say you know it's $50, but that's all you really know. So you have your invoice, you put in $50 and you hit find, and it'll bring up every single invoice that you have that's $50. Or let's say like the let's say you want to find whatever lanyards it is. You can put in there, instead of invoice, you can do a drop down and it'll say check or bill or whatever, and it changes its invoice number to, it'll have a memo field, so you can put in lanyards there. So there's many different ways that you can search for items and search for records. And then down here is where your populated list comes. All you do is you double click on it and it'll bring up that actual transaction. QuickBooks introduced something on 2014, that was actually pretty cool. And it's a snapshot button. And if you hit the snapshot button, I've circled it up there, on your bar up there. If you hit that snapshot button, you get this screen. And this screen, I don't think a lot of people know about it because they don't really talk about it, but the screen is actually really cool. It shows on here your income and expenses with a bar graph on here. You have a pie graph down here on how you are spending something, how you're spending your money. And there's a lot of information on here, and like I don't think many people know about it because they don't really talk about it. But they added it, I think it was 2014, they added that one.
So you have to have a 2014 version of QuickBooks?
Or later. Or later. If you have 2009, it's not going to work. The button's not there. The other thing that is pretty cool is everything, all of your reports are going to have these little arrows on them. What those arrows mean is you have sub-accounts. So let's say you have, here, we have insurance, we have general liability, and we have workers' comp. Well, let's say on this profit and loss, you don't want to know, you don't care what your general liability and workers' comp, you only want totals. And all of this, and sometimes your income statements can be 3-4 pages, and it's just so long, and you don't care about any of that, you just want your totals, and you don't care about all of the detail on there. I mean, you still want to keep track of the detail, but sometimes you don't always want to show it on your reports. If you click on these arrows, what it'll do is it'll turn the arrow to the right, and it'll only give you your total insurance number there, so you don't have the detail. I think I have. And there, see where it turns it there? So that's the expanded version, where you can't even see down here at the bottom. And then here's one where I've collapsed everything, so you can see here's your total income, here's your total expenses. You still have some detail, but you don't have, for insurance, you have a total of $2,500. Instead of showing all of this stuff at one time, it's just a cleaner way to show it. And that's it.
So, does anybody have any questions for Karen? This is your opportunity. If you wrote any notes for questions.
I know that was a lot of information.
I have another question about the PayPal.
Sure.
So we only use currently, we just use it for donations.
Okay.
So like we have a scholarship fund, I'm with Bristol Valley, we have a scholarship fund where folks can go through fundraiser, the money is put into our PayPal account. But then we have been taking it out of our PayPal account and becoming a checking account.
Sure.
So do I still need to set up the separate account?
You
for
still need to
PayPal?
set up the
Okay.
PayPal account, and you're gonna wanna set up as a bank account,
Okay,
and you still wanna do reconciliations on that.
okay.
I would do it every month.
Mhm.
All the PayPals that I do every month, and I just run a report for that month, and I make sure I have all the transactions in there.
Okay,
You can either do, once a month, do one big batch entry, or you can do, if you wanna keep track of each individual donation, you can go ahead and do it line by line. And then what you're gonna do is at the end of that month, or whatever time period that you do, whenever you transfer, if you go to the banking menu, you will see a transfer funds.
okay,
And you're just gonna select that you're gonna transfer it from PayPal to your checking account.
okay.
And then that way you have and that'll show up on your reconciliation as a deposit to your bank. It'll show up on your reconciliation PayPal as a withdrawal from PayPal.
Great, okay.
I have a question about using QuickBooks Online and integrating Harvest,
Okay?
if you're familiar with that at all.
I'm not familiar with Harvest, and QuickBooks Online is totally different than the desktop version.
And we're having a QuickBooks Online class.
Yeah, so we use Harvest to track our employees' time,
Okay?
and that's directly linked to our invoicing of projects for clients.
Okay?
So we haven't integrated QuickBooks with Harvest yet, so we're not using QuickBooks at all for invoicing, so it's getting a little hairy with putting in everything as far as bills and payments.
Okay?
So I didn't know if you would advise using one over the other or using the integration between the two.
With QuickBooks, there's a lot of programs that you can integrate with. I'm not familiar with Harvest. Before I come back with the next one, I will look up Harvest and see how you can do that. But they do have, I know you can do, point of sale obviously integrates back and forth, but there's a lot of systems that you can work with QuickBooks, and if it says it integrates with QuickBooks, that's great. You probably need the Premier version, not Pro. You want to make sure that you have the correct versions if you're going to be integrating. Not all of the QuickBooks Online will integrate, so you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing will integrate with that thing. And the way that you can find that out is you can ask the supplier of the other of Harvest, what version of QuickBooks they integrate with, because even if you have QuickBooks Premier, it may not integrate with that specific system. You might need to get a different version of QuickBooks for that. Also, if your version of QuickBooks is older than, I think they go back 5 years before they drop support, it won't work with integration either. You have to have a current version of QuickBooks. Let me look on the Harvest and let me see if I can get some information on that. But there is a tab under the file, we have it here. On your home screen, you have file, and then you have integration. And you have to make sure you, number one, turn integration on. And then number two, you have to have them on at the same time because you have to allow that other program to integrate with QuickBooks. Otherwise, who's to say, I don't go to your computer and I put some program on there and I tell it to integrate with QuickBooks, whenever I want. It's kind of a safeguard to do. It's really easy to do. You just pop up and you hit OK. So.
More questions? So Karen is coming back on July the 15th, so you have a month to set your accounts up and start working with it and write down all the questions that you have about it. You've got her card. So she does have a private business, so it may take her a while to answer an email, but for sure she's going to be back here on July the 15th for session 2. So
if I get a lot of the same questions, I'll put that into the next one. My next one, I'm going to talk more about reports. I'm going to talk more about customizing the reports. Also, we never did talk about, I specialize in nonprofit and governmental. And in nonprofit and governmental, you have a lot of different funding sources that you have to keep track of. QuickBooks can do that for you. I think sometimes when people are in nonprofit and governmental, they think that if they get a grant, you have to have a separate bank account for those. And some grants are that restrictive, but not most grants. And so we'll be talking about different, how you class things in QuickBooks, how you do reports on different things. If you own, like, if you have a grant and it's for $10,000 and you only want to report on that $10,000, I'm gonna show you how to do reports like that. I'm gonna show you how to customize your invoices. I'm gonna show you how to customize your bills, and we'll go over more of that. But if I get the same questions from a couple of people, I'll put that in the thing too.
So the suggestion is to take this home with you, and when you're setting up your business or you're editing what you've already got in your QuickBooks, you know, find the page to where the question is, and, you know, write it down and bring your QuickBooks.
Yeah, for me, I found the best way to learn QuickBooks for me is to actually use it. And if I can't figure something out, well, I have to figure it out. So, but if you can't figure something out, just call me, or email me, or put it on, and I'll put it on the next thing. That's fine. But if you get in there and actually use it, a lot of it, QuickBooks is pretty user-friendly, and you can either kind of figure it out yourself, or if you just, like I said, if you just call me, I can just walk you through it. Usually it just takes a couple of minutes. The other thing about that QuickBooks, which is good but bad, is you can always change anything. So if you enter something and it's wrong, you can change it. It's okay. So don't not do something because you think you're going to do it wrong, but you need it done. So you can always change it.
Now, Catherine had a question.
When is the QuickBooks Online class? I didn't realize
February.
it would be so different.
QuickBooks Online is February the 3rd. We have, I went and got our rack cards, and we've got a list of all the classes that are coming up through April the 20th of next year.
Okay. I didn't realize they would be so different.
They're very different.
Yeah.
There's, you have QuickBooks desktop version, which is what we mostly looked at today, and that's what most people use. You have point of sale, which is still QuickBooks even though it's point of sale, and that is when you walk into a store and they have a cash register with a gun, I don't know what else you call that?
Scanner.
That's probably QuickBooks Point of Sale. You can also use QuickBooks Desktop for that too. But QuickBooks Point of Sale talks with QuickBooks Desktop. You also have QuickBooks Enterprise. Enterprise is for your really big clients. Those are the ones that have more than 25 customers, or more than 25,000 clients, more than 25,000 vendors. And then you have QuickBooks Online, which is totally different from all of them. QuickBooks Enterprise and QuickBooks desktop version, they're almost the same, but online is very, very different. Very different.
And Sharon has a question, but I want to tell you all before anybody else leaves, because they're going to be sorry they left early. Catherine has a cupcake business called Sweetworks. She was in our business challenge, and they're the best cupcakes you ever ate. And she called and wanted to know how many people had registered. So she has brought a miniature cupcake for everybody, so get a cupcake on your way out.
You probably won't like it.
Yeah. Please be sure and fill out your survey. Especially this survey will help us to help Karen have more information for you for her next class. And I think then Sharon had another question.
I do, but it's pretty intense. It has to do with customizing reports.
Okay.
Because maybe one time I get it right, and the next time I can't, and I know there must be some type of formula on how to match the pieces up so you get what you want. Because if you don't match them up correctly, your report will either have too much data, repeated data, or no data.
Have you tried memorizing a report?
Yes,
Okay.
but it's not what I want. And then when I try to go back and get what I did it one time and I said, Angela, look at this good because you'll never see it again because I don't know how I did it.
Well, that might be, like you said, a little bit more in depth. It depends on what it is that you're trying to do. You can run a budget report in here that'll have, a lot of the nonprofits will have, this is your income and expense, here's your budget, here's your difference. And you have, you can customize that where you can add columns, you can take away columns. So I'm not quite sure what kind of report it is that you're trying to run or what it is that you're trying to do.
It's a run, say like a year, payments from, renters.
Okay,
Okay, I get the deposit and I get them, but then I get everybody else too. And I don't want everybody else too because I don't want them to see the other people.
okay, so it's a rental business?
Yes,
Okay, and this is the income that people are paying you in rent?
yes.
Okay, when you go to customize your report, and then you're gonna have, I think it's the second button over. I think it's the second. I'll make sure that I put this in
Yeah,
the next one.
I'll print out some examples
Okay.
of what I'm looking at. I'll do screen prints and bring it with me.
Okay.
So maybe you can go over it with me after the class.
Sure, and what you can do is if you get to, you customize your report, and I'm pretty sure it's the second button over, and you can toggle, if you only want one customer to show, or if you want 3 specific customers to show. There's a drop down and it says, vendors or customers, and you can pick certain ones on that screen. So it is possible to do that. Well, you did it before, so
But yeah,
it's possible to do that, yes.
It's but it's a 2 tabs selection.
Mhm.
And you have to get everything matched up so, and if you don't get anything.
You do, that's correct.
That's what I need help with is how to align my data so I will get the report.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do reports next time.
Okay.
You can, in the interim, if you wanna give me a call, I can walk you through it on the phone.
Very good. Okay, so our next class is June the 24th here at the Incubator. It's going to be Facebook and Instagram. And is that
Valentina.
Valentina? I don't know if you've all seen her before, but she is a wizard at
Social media.
social media marketing. So Facebook and Instagram, June the 24th. Please get a cupcake, and thank you all for coming, and thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you for having me.
One question, Karen. We had somebody from live stream ask, some of the reviews say that Mac was not the best system for running QuickBooks. Have you know if Mac is different than PC?
The Mac version and the PC version of the desktop are different. If you are running a Mac version of desktop, I cannot yet pull it up in PC. So if you have someone that is a Mac and they need to do something in PC, you're not going to be able to talk to each other. The Mac version does have different options that the PC version offers, but you can't do it in Mac yet. They are getting better about having the Mac version be exactly the same as PC, but as of right now, they are not exactly the same.
So the online version would probably be better for if you...
The online version would be better for someone if they are using a Mac and they are file sharing with other people that don't have a Mac. I do have one client, and they did use QuickBooks Online because they're a graphic design client, and so they have all these Macs, and I'm like, I'm not using a Mac. So I have PC, and I can't help them. I can't log into their system unless, I have QuickBooks for Mac, but I don't have a Mac, so I'm not buying a Mac to do that. But they do have QuickBooks Online. They bought QuickBooks Online instead of the Mac version. So what we ended up doing was they put me as their accountant on there so I can go in and do what I need to do, and we don't have to worry about the different versions. But yeah, the Mac and PC version are different. The Mac version doesn't have the same abilities that the PC version does, but they're getting better on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.